Hi everyone. We're going to start the third talk of the day. Please meet Daryl Davies, which is director at Open Source Integrators. And he will tackle a very interesting topic today, as he's going to explain us how Odoo enabled the growth by eliminating silos created by Zoho and Quickbooks. You can come closer if you want. Daryl is not going to eat you. No? So if not, you can just stay over there. No worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Everybody can hear me okay? Excellent. Good. I'm Daryl Davis. I'm the Director of Business Development at Open Source Integrators. We call ourselves OSI for short. We are an Odoo Gold partner, multinational, multiple offices, growing fast. I'm here today to talk about one of my most passionate topics, and that's our customers. Our customers are what mean the most to us, and this customer in particular has done a fantastic job and is experiencing a lot of growth themselves. So let's talk a little bit about them. So we're going to talk about SKA Fabricating. So a brief history, SKA Brewing was actually a craft brewer out of Durango, Colorado. A large brewing company out of that area. They were experiencing what a lot of craft breweries are experiencing right now, and that's a massive amount of growth. There was a huge craft brewing explosion in the United States that caused them to have a lot of demand. And that demand went beyond just people coming to their breweries and getting some pints of beer. That demand grew into the need to can and bottle and package their product to be able to ship to larger grocery stores, different types of places that sell beer, and different types of alcohol. So along the way, one of the founders, Matt Vincent of SKA Brewing, was going out and looking for a particular type of product that was only available to large brewing corporations. So companies like Anheuser-Busch. And that was products that would allow them to be able to can their product quickly and then take that product and put it onto pallets for shipping purposes, and then having the machinery to be able to take the products and the pallets and then take the cans off. So most craft breweries, I don't know if you've been there or seen this, but as they grow, it's a very manual operation. They're filling their cans, they're putting the tops on, they're pulling them down, they're having to put that down and set them on a pallet. It's a very, very manual, labor-intensive operation. So they couldn't afford the machines that were out there. So they literally did what most companies dream of doing. They found a market that was unfilled. And this market ended up being extremely exclusive for them. And that market specifically was building affordable machines for craft brewing industry that would allow them to bring cans on and off pallets, called palletizers and depalletizers. But what happened with SKA was, not only was this a huge disruption to the industry and a huge disruption for the type of business that they were working on, but what they didn't realize at the time that this would explode into other areas. So things non-alcoholic like kombucha, soda water, craft sodas, all of these things, there was this market of people who needed to be able to put product on pallets and take product off pallets because it was costing them so much overhead. So again, this company started off as a brewery. They're just really smart guys. They love to tinker, they love to play, and they ended up designing all of these different products that ended up being used in the industry and desperately needed by these craft brewing corporations. That caused massive, massive growth in their industry, to the point that SKA wasn't ready for the type of growth. Their systems were not ready for that type of growth. And they found themselves in a position that they never had before. These smart guys needed help, and they needed help to figure out how they could automate and create efficiencies through their operations inside that organization. And so for those of you who might not know, This is what a Depalletizer potentially looks like. These are complex, engineered machines. These machines have to be built to specification for each of the craft breweries. The places where the cans need to be put on the pallets and the places that the cans need to be pulled off the pallets, for example, differ from location to location. So SKA Brewing's cycle is very much an engineer to order situation. They have to come out. They got to go learn about their customer. They got to find out where their pain points are. They got to identify the room sizes, the places that they're going to put it, the areas and locations where these products are going to be need to put on the pallets, the areas and locations that the products need to be taken off of them. Sure, they have components that they reuse. They have sub-assemblies that they make. But at the end of the day, this final design has to be done for that company. So they have a huge manufacturing cycle. They have an engineering cycle before that. Then they need to install the product. Then they need to service the product. It's literally a full, holistic, end-to-end support, all the way from inception to maintaining and keeping these machines running. So, what did they run into? Well, they ran into what most companies who have this extreme growth run into. As the company grew, the leadership grew. As the leadership grew and the orders grew and the customers grew and all of those things grew, the leadership was unable to find that data that tells the big picture story of whether or not they're making good, fast business decisions. They didn't see what they needed. So they were spending all of their time, which a lot of companies have seen, going out, asking for reports, asking for spreadsheets, asking for data, coming from all these different places. In America, we call those silos. That's where that information exists only in that place. And the only way you're getting it is if somebody gets it out for you. And that causes disruption in a bad way. You're not able to know. You're getting reactive information, reactive data, and sometimes, unfortunately, very bad data. Because people own their data and they don't want to talk about things being bad, so they're sometimes not going to give you that information you need to know there's a problem. And so helping tear these silos down was a significant goal for this. The interdepartmental frustrations from that bad or inconsistent data, it wasn't getting resolved. It was just constant fighting, amongst the people who were growing. They cared about each other, they cared about their customer, they cared about their growing business, but they experienced what most companies in a growth path do, and that's conflict. And that conflict was because they just didn't know how to effectively share. So they couldn't get that data quickly or sometimes at all when it was needed to make those larger decisions. The amount of data entry and re-entry and duplication efforts across the organization was staggering. When we went out there, the number of times that they had to re-enter something as simple as product information was huge. And across 3 different systems that we'll see, that product description and sometimes the part number could be different from system to system to system because this area evolved and moved forward, this area didn't know about it, and when that information came over, they didn't know how to adjust. So that caused it a huge issue because that information was only accessible to one or certain departments of information, and when they had to share, there was a lot of, well, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done this, that's not what it looks like, a lot of issues. But the problem is for a growing organization, this is all waste. This is a waste of their time. They need to move quickly, they need to move fast. So these were the resulting problems that we identified. First, no single source of truth. It was creating an incomplete view of the business. They could not see whether or not they were winning or losing. And for most companies, especially companies who are disrupting the industry, the most important thing is knowing whether you're winning or losing and whether you're on track. Is your growth going in the right direction? Are you getting the right customers? Are you affecting the right things? They had a less collaborative environment. That limited access made it difficult to share a common vision. One department was going off in their own vision, another department was going off in another vision. They conflicted, they really didn't know which one was the right way because they couldn't see it. What this created probably the worst. Internal frustrations are difficult. Internal frustrations cause problems. But what happens when it gets to your customer, that's a whole nother level of bad. And so they were starting to feel that their customers were starting to feel that inconsistent customer experience. What they were getting from the initial pre-sales, from the engineering department, from the after-sales and services, from the accounting department, it was all a different feel. And it was confusing and difficult for the customers. Because with those multiple touch points, those siloed applications affect what and how the company sees things at every stage of that game. So, lack of standards, lack of common language. Like we talked about, each silo created a potentially new way to talk about the same thing, and it created confusion and errors. So this was their current state when we came in. So they had multiple applications. As you can see here, there is at least 5 different siloed applications that they were working through. And so quickly, when marketing was a big part of their business, because they disrupted the industry and because they had a product that nobody else was doing, marketing's critical to them. You don't know that there's a solution to your problem, so you have to get that problem out there for people to see, hey, I'm experiencing this, and there's definitely a solution for that. So the product that they were using for their marketing was disjointed from the product that they were using for their sales and CRM processes. So through this whole thing, what you'll see, it was a lot of, if data was shared at all, it was done by exporting the data to Excel, bringing the data into the next system, exporting the data to Excel, bringing the data into the next system, exporting the data to Excel, bringing the data into the next system. And so this is what the customer's experience was like. It was starting off with one experience in the marketing section, a completely different experience when it was brought into the sales and CRM for the engineering and quoting processes. And then once those orders were confirmed and they were ready to be billed and managed, because this company had very long process here. So there was multiple milestone payments, down payments, all of these things that had to happen and be coordinated and organized through this whole process. So not only did they manufacture products, but they also had to purchase manufactured products. They had to coordinate installations on site. They had to coordinate field service items. They had to have the right people. They had to have electricians to properly hook up the electrical components and make sure that this was a massive coordination effort. And so by the time it got to the scheduling, we could only hope that we had the best data. And once again, the scheduling application was disjointed from the rest of them. So that scheduling application had no idea whether or not that customer had actually given their down payment or made their milestone payment or any of those items. And so a lot of fighting between things. Oh, well, we had to move forward for the customer. Well, we don't move forward until we get our payments. So on and so forth. And as you can see, this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare for growing companies. This is what stops companies' growth. This is what prevents them from moving to the next level. Products and systems and organizations that get good process and focus on building a one source of truth to control that data flow so that everybody can see what's critical through the process, that is what SKA needed. And so when we went in, we brought the same concept that I bring to every project that comes through. When we came in, we said, look, we're going to come in, we're going to learn about you. We're going to learn who you are. We're going to learn about your processes. But most importantly, we're going to start off as simple as possible. And this is a quote that I use all the time. I use this quote in front of my customers because to me it's extremely important. We have to start simple. Complex systems that exist now did not start or were designed complex. They're built up systematically and they always start from an original simple system. And so we took that same approach. SKA is the best at what they do. They know what they need to do. What they needed was partners and people who knew how to help take what they did best and eliminate waste and create flow through their organization. And we weren't going to do that by trying to take everything all at once and drop it into a big big complex system where people didn't understand it, didn't like it, don't feel involved in it. So we always start with that simple solution. And so when we came in, we started walking that entire life cycle. And when we considered the solution space and we considered those items that needed to be taken into consideration, we were the people that could help them see that holistically. We could bring those subject matter experts together. We could identify what they actually needed to go after, what problems they truly needed to solve, and we could help move them through that process. And what we identified was, for everything that they were doing, there was an Odoo solution that could help them solve that problem. And if done correctly, they were going to create that collaboration and integration and visibility that they were looking for through their entire process. And so as we could see, we took them all the way from the marketing automation section through sales and CRM, down into the project inventory purchasing system, into the after sales and service and manufacturing area, all the way through to accounting, so that everything tied back together. Because literally at SKA, what happens in accounting affects what happens in the project. Accounting needs to be responsible for the payments, the milestone payments, the down payments. And how that project progresses was critical to what happened in accounting. So now, what they do in accounting and running their processes becomes one source of truth. They're able to see where they're at, and those projects are able to move forward. And as we learned more about them and what worked, we were able to know the right things to automate. So, again, as we walk through this to eliminate silos, the first thing we did was identify their marketing system. At the time, they were using ActiveCampaign. What we identified was what they were doing in ActiveCampaign, Odoo was able to handle through both mass mailings and the email marketing and marketing automation features. We were going to be able to build out those campaigns that they were doing, those very targeted campaigns to those different types of customers, all of which have different pain points in different areas that need to be addressed. So this ended up being a game changer for them, because this was the first time marketing and sales, believe it or not, were working out of the same systems. They didn't even know they didn't even know how to handle it. Like it freed up so much of their time. They were like, well, what are we going to do with our salespeople now? And it took very little time for them to be like, well, you know what? They could be doing all of these things that we've been putting off for a long time because we just didn't have time to do them. It literally took weights off their shoulders to move that forward and get them going. But it didn't stop there. Because we were able to bridge that gap, that marketing and email system was able to flow directly into the leads section. And they have very complex lead management. They go to trade shows. They do outbound campaigns. They deal with a number of inbound. They have international. They have local. They have the whole deal. And they utilize the tag features, the information features, the finding out information. If you go to their website, and I encourage you to do, because what they do could help someone you know, what you're going to find is that they have amazing products, and they have numerous types of customers that they need to go after. So Odoo's marketing automation and workflow featured allowed us to create extremely targeted campaigns for customers in ways that they had never been able to do before. We were going to be able to manage leads from a trade show, separate from the outbound, inbound, separate from whether or not they clicked a Facebook link, that whole deal. But it was all inside Odoo. So sales was able to quickly move from leads into opportunities at a rate that they had never seen before. So all of these leads, this is a tiny little picture. This is a real, this is their real system. This is a tiny picture of their opportunities. Their pages of opportunities scroll for 3 pages now. The amount of customers that they were able to build and generate, and the quickness with which they were able to move through those, was revolutionized for them. And then that moved into their complex quoting and management process. So again, they're very much engineer to order. And so we were able to utilize the function in Odoo to pull together multiple areas. So when they go from their opportunities and their opportunities pull directly to their estimations and quotes, that's auto-generating task for the engineering teams. It's all across the top, as you can see, and it's all tied back because their engineer to order is critical to their process. It generates the projects, it generates the tasks, it drives their field service work, it drives their projects for their engineers. They're logging time against it, they're tracking their costs. Everything on this order ties directly to the manufacturing orders, and because their machines are so complex, they literally have 5 levels deep of BOMs, and which we'll see here in a minute, all with work orders. Because of the job order manufacturing that we were able to implement to them, you'll see that they can schedule entire jobs, all the way from the top manufacturing order down to the least manufacturing order, 3 levels deep. They can see that all the way from top down up and be able to tell their customer when. Capacity planning has changed what they did, and it all drives from this sales order. The complex purchase process, because they don't want to buy extremely expensive product before they're ready for it and keep it in inventory, it generates purchase orders that tie back to that sales order immediately, and those purchase orders and receiving all drive actions in the system that say whether or not they're ready to move to that next stage. And everybody can see it. It's absolutely amazing. And all of that flows in through the project team, the supply chain team, the inventory team. The replenishment screen changed the way that they ordered product and information. They were able to reorganize and create routes in ways that they didn't think that they were going to be able to. Once again, freeing up time in areas that allowed them to focus more on the business and less on the technology. And so as you can see here, all of this flows through. They're going to be able to see everything from a project level. Once again, sales orders, invoices, purchase orders, everything that tied through. And all of this was automated in a way that had never been before. Tagged in a way that had never been before. Searchable in a way that had never been before. And it all drove to this complex, which used to be a complex scheduling process. And now everything is pulled together by a job in the system. And so this is just a brief look, but each of these right here are literally the jobs and all the work orders that need to happen as a result of it. So their capacity planning has been revolutionized as well. They can have their salespeople go in, look at their schedule, understand their capacity, and they can say, here's when we're going to be able to build. But the big thing here is all of this happens as a result of that confirmation of sales order. Sure, there's scheduling that happens inside of it, but it's all tied together. It brings the visibility. Everybody's speaking the same language. They're all looking at the same job. So when they go in, they know exactly where that customer's jobs are at and exactly what status that they need to give them. That moves down into the after sales and services. So all of these sales orders and jobs tie back to the services. So now if they need to service that product, if they need to change that information, if they need to update that customer, it all flows into the help desk as well. And all of these pieces, again, integrated in a way that they never considered before. And all of that information that was built up through all of that tagging, all of those things that are critical to business decision-making flows through accounting as well. And now the accountants can see profitability, they could see success, they can collect that information. So why Odoo and why OSI? Well, for us, projects like this are not an IT project. They're a business change project. When we're bringing the company together, that's the hard part. When we're bringing together all those silos and all those people who've had to work independently for years, that's the hard part of the project. Bringing it together and making sure it's successful for each of those areas. Company buy-in and responsible change management. That's critical. We can't be effective if we don't get all the way down to the end user and ensure that we're helping them in their pain. We got to show value through that whole process. If we make people's lives easier, better, and faster, buy-in becomes easy. When they see it, they want it, they're after it, they're excited about it. Simple integrations. When things get too complex, they get too difficult, they stretch the project timeline out, and everybody gets frustrated and angry. And we have to use best practices for business growth. This is critical. We need to focus on what made SKA special and do best-in-class features for the things that are more the same than different through business, and focus more on what makes SKA special and a differentiator. Those deserve our time. Those deserve us bringing them together. And we do all that at OSI with our 4-step implementation approach. We analyze, we optimize, we automate, and transition. So this was all the benefits that they ended up seeing. All-in-one solution, real-time accurate reporting, more effective integrations, and we built that collaborative company culture through business change management that they were looking for to bring them bad. Less time fixing bad data and more time focused on the business.
Thank you, Daryl. Very interesting. To be honest, I think most of the salespeople willing to sell Odoo should watch your talk, because it looks like you have been quite a time with them at SKA, and you can really sense the energy that they have been, through. So interesting. Anyone with questions today for Daryl? No, I have one. So initially they were brewing beer, correct?
Initially, they were a craft brewery. Yep.
Are they still brewing beer?
They are. They still brew beer.
Did you like it?
It's delicious.
Perfect.
It's fantastic.
So that was my question. If we don't have any more questions, I'm just going to close the Q&A session. Thank you very much, Daryl. See you around. Thank you.
Thank you.